Oh my goodness me. We're finally here. Honestly, it's taken me more months than I can count to get this car down to this garage alongside its younger cousin. I'm really pleased that this car works, and I've been driving this just around the block, just not long distance, but just around the block, just to get it nice and warm, and just to make sure that the car continues to work in the way that it is continuing to work for me. And I've been absolutely overjoyed that finally this car, Ruby, is actually working, running, and working very efficiently. I do think that the compression on this engine is a little bit low. Like I said to you in an earlier video, getting 90 to 100 is quite low, but I've never had a car that's achieved 150. I've never had one. Not even the K-Series did that. I actually did a compression test on the K-Series not long ago, and that was supposed to get 150-ish, probably 115. But that car goes like that, like a train. This car drives pretty much as I would expect a 1.4 CVH with probably not 75 horses. But then saying that, this is quite an interesting thought. This car came out the factory on the book with 75 horsepower. But how many of those horses have we still got? Only a rolling road will know, and I will do that in the future. This car is going to go on a rolling road, and I'm going to find out how many horses we've got. But really, do I want to know? Not really. Because I actually asked Rob, if you're watching this, my friend, I hope you're good. I asked Rob, when he bought Ruby off Kieran, how it felt. Because Rob has owned many 1.4 Escorts of the same age. How does it drive? Fine. It drove exactly as it pulled exactly as it expected. And yet that was a time where this car was not tuned up correctly. The plugs were black. The choke was on fully all the time to get around a problem that we have finally solved from what I can see, because by now it would have played up 100%. And it still pulled nicely. Now that's all gone. The mixture's absolutely spot on. The emissions told me that from the MOT. I've just fractionally made it a little bit richer because it was just under 15%. I've just literally turned it, not even an eighth of a turn. That's it. Perfect. I've also fitted the new distributor. Remember the distributor I bought at the NEC, the new old stock one? Yeah, I've actually managed to replace the old one. So if I'm going to show you the old one, if you can see this on camera, this really isn't good. That was me tightening up one of the bolts because it just wouldn't tighten up properly. I thought, why is that not going in? And I was wondering, there was a hairline crack in this already, and I just made it go. So it's a shame, but at the same time, there is a little bit of sideways play that I didn't detect before. I wasn't very thorough. So this is a parts bin, and the new one on the car, oh, it's new old stock. You've seen it at the NEC, for those of you who've watched that video. It's nice and brass-coloured diaphragm. That, I'm not being funny. Oh, no, I can hear it. I didn't hear it yesterday. I was pulling on this, and I hear the one, the little vacuum, the rubber diaphragm pulling, but this one, yeah, just a little bit. You wouldn't be able to pick that up on camera. But this is just spares. I could probably use it for this and a few gubbins, but apparently I have bought the correct one. I thought it was the wrong one. Turns out the seller, well, it turns out someone selling one on the internet got it wrong. He said it was for 1.6 CVH. Well, no, this is for 1.4 because the numbers were exactly the same. 89 SF 12100 BA. It's the same one I've just bought. I thought they were different parts numbers. So I brought that down here today to chuck in my spares for this car. But it actually runs, after I timed it up to 10 degrees. Now, this is what I'm going to say next about horsepower. That 75 brake horsepower was actually based on that little punch mark, which was made for 8 degrees. Why? Why 8 degrees? Well, fuel wasn't as good back then. and it was certainly prone to pre-detonation. You see, people criticise modern fuels. Yeah, modern fuels go off more easy. There's more ethanol in modern fuels, but they actually are better at burning. There's a lot of factors in that. And because of that, I'm now able to put super unleaded in, which might be equivalent to 4-star back in the day. But with 4-star fuel, you could tune this to 12 degrees. But you'd have to be careful that you don't advance it too much, because if you advance the ignition too much, you get risk of pre-detonation, pinking, knocking, we call it. And that is deadly for car engines. I really don't want that. I'd rather have it back a bit and a bit underpowered. So that 75 brake horsepower would have probably been set. Well, I know for a fact, this is the original distributor. That new old stock one has never been fitted to any car before yesterday when I fitted it and timed it, because it doesn't have a punch mark, whereas this does. This was from the factory. I've no doubt that's probably the factory original that's done 51,000 miles and has a bit of play. So that one is going to work so nice. I think it's smoother. I really do. I think the idle is smooth. I think everything is a little bit smoother with that Dizzy. And we know everything's going to work long term. Not that this wasn't working that well at all. It was working fine. Because I've advanced the ignition because of modern fuels, therefore I've managed to advance the ignition a little bit. And therefore, like I said, 10 degrees was my preference, not 12. I think 12 might be pushing it. I didn't want it on 12. I could try that, and we might try an experiment to see whether I can advance it, because if you advance the ignition, the more power effectively you have. But the more power, but the higher risk of pinking. So it's a compromise. So I think 10 degrees between 8 and 12. 10 degrees, absolutely smack bang on. Timed it yesterday, runs like a dream. Absolutely perfect. Now, that potentially means that even though I think this engine's probably lost about 10 horses. I think it feels like 65 to me, or maybe a little bit more than that, but not much less, not much more. I reckon I've gained a few horses by advancing the ignition. So the fact is that I've lost horses over the years, or maybe the car never had 75 from the factory. That's possible, because I've got a feeling that this car was probably a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday car, and the engine was more of a Monday, Friday car. Maybe a Friday, maybe a Friday engine, more or less, not a Monday one. Because I don't think that engine was wasn't particularly well put together, and I think that, like many of them, they just suffer from piston ring blow-by, which I think this suffers from. There is a strong sense of crankcase gases coming from the breather pipe if you took the pipe off and throttle it, which is not a problem because it's a very well-serviced, clean engine, but it just means that there is a little bit of oil burning going on, and she does burn oil, and that's possibly something I'll look to try and reduce. But the thing is with classic cars is, where do you start? I mean, some people say, well, you need to take the piston rings out, replace the piston rings. Please, honestly, I think there's a limit to where I will go with such a car, particularly one that I know probably isn't going to stay with me long term, but I have no idea where that's going to lead. This car will stay with me for as long as I can financially feel comfortable owning 3 cars, and for as long as I don't see any long-term issues. If I spot something there, I might have to move it on to somebody who can look after it more than me, but I don't think there's too many issues at the moment, but you never know what's around the corner. That's life. That's classic cars. So one thing I have done with the new distributor is put a new O-ring. This O-ring is totally flat. No wonder it was leaking on the gearbox. And that O-ring cost me £4, and it's a very widely available part. And the new one, was nice and tight. I had to kind of twist it right in. It doesn't leak. Fantastic. So, touch wood. There's no wood. No leaks at the moment. But with classic cars, you solve an oil leak and then a new one springs up. So no doubt there'll be a new oil leak somewhere that I'll have to find. But at the moment, dry. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here because Ruby, you're not going to see Ruby for too much longer. For probably another month or so, because I've got to get on with finishing that paintwork, and paintwork is time consuming. There's going to be a load of other videos coming out of my other cars and shows in particular, but I don't want to show this car until the paintwork is done. There's a local car meet tomorrow, but realistically I won't be going there. I'll be going there probably in the Focus, because the paintwork on this, I've got to go and get some cans made today. I'm going to get some scans made of this grey down here and that. Now, most shops will say, oh, it's diamond white, we'll make you a can. I've had 2 cans made of this stuff and it doesn't match at all. So I'm going to get some paint scans made, and they're going to try and get as close a match as possible. Whether it is diamond white, I don't know. But I'm going to a paint specialist with a great reputation, and I shall ask the question, will it be roughly, will it be roughly the same colour that's on the car? And if the answer is not yes, I will not be purchasing, and I will have to go to my painter, because I am not wasting my time putting on a top coat when it's not going to blend in through the corners of the windscreen. Ideally, some people say you should have just done the top half of the tailgate, and therefore you won't have to do any blending as such. It will just look fractionally different to the quarter panel of the car. That did occur to me, and it's probably good advice, but at the moment I'm probably not going to want to do that. I'm going to try and want to blend it in as best as I can. It won't look amazing, but it will look far better than what was there before, and hopefully we won't have any long-term issues with the rust coming back, he says. But all the rust is gone, that's the point. The reason why rust comes back is because people do filling jobs and then they put filler on top of rust. What do you think's going to happen? Absolute total waste of your time. And also getting a scan of this two-tone, because I'm not being funny, this two-tone grey, it would look completely different on some cars depending on what month it was made. I know another F-Reg Fiesta Mark III with a two-tone gear. It's the only other gear on an F-Reg that I know of, is 1.1. And his two-tone is a completely different shade of grey to mine. It's much lighter. Mine's darker. So you see the conundrum that I'm facing here. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I just saw, thank you for this, listening to this little blog, just this little update. But she's working really, really nicely. So I'm going to get off to the paint shop now and get the ball rolling. Wish me luck. Got some new supplies. Top tip of the day. This is a product tip at the end of this video, just a little Easter egg. Lidl's Parkside Aluminium Zinc Spray. This is what I use. This is superb stuff. This is probably the cheapest zinc spray you will find. And, but it's not very good if it's cheap. I used to use U-Pol. U-Pol was very good as a paint supplier for in aerosol cans. I used to use their zinc prime all the time. Used a bit of zinc on a few areas on this car, just as an anti-corrosion spray. Zinc spray is much more effective than any other spray, particularly red oxide is another one. Red oxide is another option, but this is superior. Zinc is always superior to red oxide. So if you can get it, get it. And it's usually, the reason people don't buy zinc is because it's expensive. This is not expensive. 400 millilitres in a small can, very nice to get into nooks and crannies, because I don't like tall cans. I don't like them. You can't get them anywhere. £4 at Lidl's. But this is the ridiculous thing, because I bought 2, it was an offer. So it wasn't £8, it was £6. I got £2 off. £3 a can. I've never had an issue with these. Never. I've used it on the Focus, Beatrix, and now the Fiesta. And project. That's my little tip for the day. Go to Lidl's. Get these. They're on the shelf in the DIY middle section every so often. Anyway, best be off.